A hush falls over Sterling Heights' VIP floor. A small, ragged girl asks, plain and steady, "I just want to check my balance." Laughter ripples, glass and marble glitter like armor. He smirks, the richest man in the room. Then the screen reveals a number, and the laughter dies in a single breath. Destiny changes faces in one heartbeat.
Before we dive into the story, give us a quick thumb up and drop "Hi" in the comment and tell us where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel.
The VIP lounge smells of polished leather and power. Security nods at flitting drivers. Murmurs of privilege skim the air. Amara walks with a faded card clutched in her palm, a relic from a life erased. People whisper, mocking, "Poor girl." What they don't know is this card is the last promise of someone who loved her enough to hide a secret.
A concierge tries to steer her away. "This floor is for clients," he says, voice polite but cold. Amara's voice is small but steady. "I just want to check my balance." The room sharpens. Laughter, a sniff, a camera phone flash. The scene feels like a furnace, heat of judgment, cold mirror of class.
From the crowd, a murmured chorus echoes comments the internet would make. "Never judge a book by its cover," and "Mother's sacrifice." Voices collide. Some condemn the rich, others excuse them. The bank's polished floors reflect both judgment and regret, and Amara's small shadow feels enormous.
A security officer pockets his smile and calls for the VIP teller. Amara's card trembles once in her fist. She remembers a woman's hands, careful, stained with detergent, folding a letter into the card months before she died. That memory steals her. She will not leave, because pride is the one thing no one could steal. They lead her to the VIP counter. The millionaire banker, glassy smile, practiced charm, greets her with a patronizing tilt. He's the room's monarch. Laughter is his scepter. "We don't serve children," he says lightly. Amara answers only, "I'm not a child." The world tilts. Anticipation tightens. He taps the bank terminal. A routine show. The teller types mechanically. The room leans in for spectacle. Phones record. The bank's name is on every tongue. Power likes to watch itself. But screens have a habit of telling truths people would rather hide. The teller enters the account number and pauses. Silence fans out like cool air. Ephraim laughs first, a practiced public laugh, thinking the moment summed up, poor and pitiable. Then the numbers blink, a balance that doesn't fit their assumptions. The room's laugh splinters. Ephraim's smile cracks. Colleagues shuffle, eyes flaring to a new frame. Curiosity. Questions thrummed like a nervous engine. "Where did this money come from?" someone breathes. Amara looks as if she knows the answer, and as if it's a secret she cannot speak yet.
A bank manager requests identification. Amara offers a scrap of paper, a funeral card, a name, Grace Nyong, and a tiny signature scribbled by a tired hand. The manager's eyes flicker. That name stirs a memory among the staff, a cleaner who worked nights, invisible in daylight.
Images bloom. Grace folding napkins at midnight in this same hall, humming under fluorescence, smiling without being seen. Staff recall her quiet competence, the woman who left a cup without complaint, who once changed a tire for a banker's car and walked away. Those memories clash with their earlier laughter.
Questions crowd. How could a cleaner's account hold such a sum? Rumors sprout. Inheritance, hidden investments, a mistake. Some whisper greed, others respect. Social media tongues would soon be sharp. Amara's silence is a storm in a teacup, small but impossible to ignore.
Who is her guardian? The question lands like a gavel. A man with a flat stare at the back, Amara's father, Jelani, steps forward, crude anger folded into posture. His suit slouches, his eyes flick like someone who has been hardened by life and made cruel by disappointment.
She's my daughter. But his eyes don't soften. The room watches the family thread unravel in public. A father who's been rough with her, a child who's been quieter than a church bell. The bankers catalog pity and opportunity in equal measure. Ephraim requests a moment alone with the account details. Behind his polite mask, curiosity becomes something more private. He taps the search for legacy files, past transfers. The files show irregular entries, occasional large deposits, and a single recurring line. Trust, Grace Nyong. Ephraim's fingers tremble imperceptibly. The ledger reveals a web, a deceased relative's secret will arranged years earlier, a custodian account, legal papers with a distant solicitor's stamp. The bank's polished certainty cracks into a puzzle, and suddenly everyone wants to know how a life of service became an account with weight. Outside, word spills into the city. Cleaners, market sellers, neighbors whisper, and an old friend recalls Grace's last night alive, carrying a cake she couldn't eat to celebrate Amara's school acceptance. That memory cuts deeper than any accusation. It shows what love looked like in small, stubborn acts. A junior teller suggests a protective hold, a legal freeze until custodianship confirmed. The chatter calms into procedure. But procedure can be theater. The actors here are real lives. Amara looks at the man who once laughed, and for a beat, neither of them knows who's richer, in cash or in conscience. Jelani steps outside, smoking furiously, a man unmoored. He mutters resentments about people who get lucky, about claims and shame. In his mouth, the language of bitterness is thick. In Amara's silence lies the memory of a mother who taught her to keep dignity even when the world offered scorn.
That night, Amara sleeps on the bench outside a public library. Her mind replayed her mother's last words, "Never let pride go hungry." For a child who had learned to be invisible, the day's glare felt unfamiliar, dangerous, and bright. Yet something new had opened, a doorway labeled possibility and peril in equal measure.
A single notification pings Ephraim's phone at midnight. An official request from a distant solicitor to verify custodianship papers. He stares at the message, the city asleep beneath him, and realizes the ledger on his screen is no quaint mistake. The laughter from hours ago echoes hollowly. Tomorrow he will have to choose.
At dawn, a courier arrives at Ephraim's estate with embossed stationery, a request from a Lagos solicitor to verify custodianship and identity. Ephraim reads the lines twice, a pulse in a man used to controlling pulses. The word custodian becomes an invitation and an accusation at once. And for the first time, his empire listens to a quiet name, Grace Nyong. He summons his private counsel. Legal jargon hums, custodial accounts, testamentary trusts, beneficiary verification. Ephraim jots a name on a post-it, then scrubs it out and writes it again, the economy of doubt. In finance, names can be currency. Here, the name is a person with hunger and a past. The room smells suddenly of unasked questions. News leaks, a single tweet, a whispered post. By lunchtime, the bank's name trends. People on the street recite the ledger like scripture. Amara's face becomes an icon overnight. A stray photo clipped from cameras, her determined eyes magnified into comment threads that swing between praise and suspicion. The city spins with rumor. Ephraim's public relations team advises caution. Let the bank handle it. But Ephraim finds himself restless, strangely compelled. He wants to know the face behind the balance. That compulsion is the quiet engine of the next step, a private invitation to meet, disguised as a courtesy call to the bank's protections unit. Meanwhile, Jelani hears the rumor at a roadside barber shop and chooses anger as armor. He bristles at the thought of strangers praising his child. "They'll come with hands out," he mutters. His voice is a brittle instrument, cruelty learned in alleyways and sharpened by shame. The day hardens him further. Ephraim arrives at Sterling Heights the next morning, not as a monarch, but as an interrogator of his own conscience. He requests a private room and asks to meet the child under the bank's supervision. Security exchanges looks. This is not protocol, but it is a rich man's wish given weight by his name. The gears of etiquette begin to twist. Amara is ushered in, small and skeptical. She skirts the pool of polished shoes like a stray seeking a patch of sun. When she sees Ephraim up close, she sizes him silently. The suit, the watch, the weight of his stillness. He offers a hand that trembles almost imperceptibly. She keeps her own hand in her pocket, clutching the funeral card. Ephraim speaks carefully. No promises, only questions, and an offer to help verify documents. He watches her face for lies or entitlement, but finds only fatigue and a strange dignity. The solicitor's earlier lines, trust, custodian, hang between them like a fragile bridge. Amara answers softly, not pleading, explaining that Grace meant to secure something safe. Word of the private meeting leaks into the staff room. Some pride, some envy, others protective. A quiet teller who once drew smiles from Grace during midnight shifts insists on bringing a tea tin for Amara. Small loyalties in the bank begin knitting threads that legal papers cannot sever. Community warms to memory. Back home, Jelani grows suspicious of strangers' concern. He confronts Amara that evening, voice low and dangerous. "You think money will change us," he spits. She answers with a look she learned from Grace, steady and true.
The tiny apartment feels smaller, filled now with the weight of possibility and Jelani's resentment.
The solicitor calls again. A deeper probe into Grace's past uncovers a ledger note. Payments from a company no one mentions in polite rooms. Bassey Holdings Legacy Division. The name lands like a dropped coin. Ephraim frowns. A family file, once archived, flickers to life with possibilities he had not counted on.
A rain-smeared afternoon brings a small confrontation. A disgruntled, distant relative of Grace accuses the bank of fabricating the trust. Voices climb, tabloids smell blood. Amara sits quiet, the center of a storm she never sought. Ephraim watches the chaos, feeling a tug between public spectacle and a private obligation he's only beginning to name.
Reflective and gentle, slightly reverent for the clerk's memory. Let warmth color stubborn and warm. Ephraim decides to trace the thread himself. He visits old ledgers, speaks to a retired clerk who remembers a long-ago kindness from a woman named Grace, a small loan repaid with a smile that opened doors. The clerk's memory is stubborn and warm. It suggests that Grace had quietly woven herself into lives in ways the rich rarely see.
Invited to the solicitor's office, Ephraim watches a packet of documents that includes a small, handwritten clause, to be held for my child, in trust, until maturity. The handwriting trembles, but is unmistakable. The signature, Grace Nyong. A private knot untangles. Grace had planned for Amara in ways that escape daylight. Ephraim's first impulse is bewilderment, then an uncomfortably intimate curiosity. Who was Grace to him? A late-night search in family archives uncovers a faded photograph. Grace with a young man in the Bassey compound decades earlier. Faces are weathered by time, but an unmistakable resemblance leaps to Amara. The silence is loud with consequence.
Ephraim confronts a shadowed family history. Hushed births, quiet departures, and a grandfather's attempt to bury scandal. Questions bloom. Could Grace be tied by blood to his line? If so, Amara would be more than a beneficiary. She could be kin, a granddaughter whose life the family had not yet acknowledged. The man who laughs now recalculates lineage. Jelani senses the shift and grows dangerous. He drinks, mutters about fortune hunters, and begins to scheme. He sees the possibility of leverage and control, a bitter plan to reclaim respect through coercion. Amara's safety narrows to a fragile thread. The most immediate threat comes not from tabloids, but from the man who should protect her.
Ephraim chooses a cautious path, an offer to open a supervised account in Amara's name with the bank's legal protections, and an invitation for proper identity verification at a notary. He frames it as safety and procedure. Amara, wary but hopeful, agrees. The first physical step toward change is both bureaucratic and intimate.
Public reaction is a river with many currents. Some applaud Ephraim's compassion. Others smell PR theater. Online commentators echo old truths. Respect comes with money. And others post heartfelt memories of Grace. The debate becomes cultural. Who counts as family? Who deserves respect? And whether public wealth can rewrite private histories.
That night, Ephraim receives a sealed envelope with a single line. There are those who would stop this truth. Inside, a pressed receipt from years ago. A transfer labeled Discreet Assistance, Grace Nyong. The implication? Grace had allies and enemies. Ephraim realizes he must protect Amara, not only from tabloids and Jelani, but from secrets someone still guards fiercely.
Daylight finds the Bassey family archive open to Ephraim's trembling hands. DNA notes, a faded hospital stamp, and a midwife's scrawled entry suggest what both feared and hoped. Grace's name appears where a child's birth once was lodged. The family's tidy story frays into actual lives, raw, complicated, and stubbornly human. Word of a possible blood link leaks into family corridors. A cousin gasps, and aunt's fingers flutter like trapped birds. The household, which once assumed itself impermeable, now questions heirlooms and secrets. Some clutch lineage like currency. Others remember a woman who quietly made life kinder. Old loyalties shift as names rearrange power.
Jelani overhears a barroom whisper. If she's Basseykin, leverage is everything. That phrase sharpens his hunger into a plan. He decides to seize control, not to protect Amara, but to claim a piece of dignity through fear. His rage is a poor map for fatherhood. Cruelty becomes his route to imagined respect.
Clinical clarity for procedures, warm on the social worker, and quiet bravery. Ephraim arranges a formal paternity review in a neutral office. A notary, 2 lawyers, and a social worker who remembers Grace's quiet bravery. Amara is present, instructed to be brave. The sterile room smells of coffee and procedural calm, but behind forms is a fragile thread that could reweave a life.
A DNA swab is taken with gentle hands. Amara, still childlike, flinches only once at the sterile cotton, then steels herself with a memory of Grace smoothing a hem. Ephraim watches the procedure like a man at confession. No verdict yet, only the sound of time and bureaucracy moving toward truth.
Jelani's threats escalate. He pressures a cousin to falsify papers and goad Amara into signing away access. His voice becomes a sharpening blade. Promises of travel, threats of exposure, and a fury that clings like smoke. Amara senses the change, but cannot name all the dangers. She only knows the man's eyes have gone colder.
The test results arrive sealed in an envelope that hums with possibility. Ephraim opens it in private, hands steady, breath slow. The line that matters, relationship, first degree, is not a rumor anymore, a granddaughter. The revelation lands like a bell. The quietest woman of their stories had more ties than anyone suspected.
Ephraim's first act is not a press release, but a private, trembling apology to Amara, to Grace's memory, and to a family that had preferred silence. He tells Amara gently, "You are family." The words are simple but immense.
Her face registers confusion, then a strange dawning relief, like sun through a cloud.
The family reacts in stages: denial, bargaining, acceptance. A grandfather's old letter surfaces, an apology never delivered. A cousin confesses past cowardice. Some relatives choose shame. Others choose to stitch Amara into the family quilt. The house that once held secrets shifts shape around a little girl.
Jelani senses his leverage slipping. He lashes out, first with words, then escalating to physical intimidation. He tries to drag Amara from the solicitor's protection, claiming parental rights. Security intervenes. The man who should protect becomes a threat. Egress closes as authorities step in.
Legal action is swift. Temporary protective custody is arranged, and a court date set. Narratives on radio and street corners debate fatherhood, greed, and dignity. Amara is placed under neutral state supervision temporarily, safe, but still afraid. The law moves like a big, slow hand, offering both protection and exposure.
Public sympathy pains Jelani. He resents how strangers now pity the child and scorn him. In a low, vicious moment, he confronts a neighbor who showed kindness to Amara and strikes out with words meant to humiliate. The community response is swift and protective. His isolation deepens his paranoia further.
Ephraim begins his quiet reckoning. He withdraws from boardroom gladiators and spends nights listening to Grace's scattered traces, a receipt, a note, a neighbor's recollection. He confronts elders in his family about mistakes of omission. The richest man learns that wealth without memory is brittle. Remorse becomes a labor he cannot outsource.
Amara attends her first formal school interview, not sponsored, but because the family decides to honor Grace's wish for education. She sits in a neat uniform borrowed from a community program, clutching Grace's funeral card in her pocket. Her eyes flick between fear and a brittle excitement she cannot fully name. At the court hearing, arguments clash: parental rights versus welfare and the confirmed DNA result. Jelani pleads. The judge listens with practiced neutrality. The decision leans on the child's welfare, not headlines. The court rules protective supervision and mandates family mediation, a legal nudge toward a delicate reconciliation. Jelani reacts with bitter theatrics. He vows to fight and storms out, but the performance masks a man unraveling. In private, his choice is narrow. Those who once supported his bluster step away. The community that once tolerated his anger begins to set boundaries. Consequence, small and inevitable, follows cruelty. Ephraim invites Amara to a modest family room in the compound, not gala, but honest. He offers her a photo album recovered from the archives. Page by page, Grace's life appears. Laundry nights, small acts of care, a single letter asking that her child be kept safe. The past becomes visible. The present must now respond. Amara's life begins to change in subtle human ways. A steady bed, a place at the table during a family dinner, and a teacher who calls her by name with care. She learns that status is not a single dramatic reveal, but a sequence of small assurances, predictable meals, an adult who listens, and a space that says, "You belong." Jelani,
Isolated and bitter, tries one last manipulation. He contacts an online blogger with a falsified story about a staged PR setup. The fabrication collapses when a neighbor records Jelani's confession. His attempt to profit from scandal becomes the final proof of his intent. Trust erodes beyond repair.
Months later, a small ceremony marks a legal guardianship established for Amara. No spectacle, no grand donations, only signatures, a quiet promise, and the family gathered. Ephraim stands with a humbled smile. He looks less like a monarch and more like a man who finally learned to listen. Amara holds Grace's card like a talisman, small, whole, and hers.